Glad to hear Leo rising. It's Cosmic Girl 101 talking astrology for February. Trust you are doing well. In this video, we're going to be talking about the planets in transits in a chronological order, all connected to your rising sign, and what all of these planetary alignments mean for you in this video. We have a key protagonist for the month of February kicking up a lot of activity, and that is planet Mercury. Our personal planet Mercury is very active in the month of February, so we are all going to be experiencing a lot of activity in the month of February. I'm going to be talking about what that means for you in this video as well. Let's get into it. Leo rising. On the 4th of the month, we have Venus ingress into Aries and we have Jupiter stationing direct in Gemini. The two benefic planets are shifting from the 4th of February moving forward. So Venus will stay put in Aries, your 9th house, for the rest of the month. Let's talk about what this means for the Leo rising signs. I've struggled with this one, to be really transparent, because Venus is in your 9th house, the house of God, through Hellenistic teachings. When Venus is transiting in the house of God, Venus, the great attractor, the great harmonizer, the planet of relationship, the relationship between planet Venus and God is one of attraction, but a cathartic, very pure transit for you, Leo rising, with this Venus in the house of God. And I struggled with this for you, Leo rising, because with Venus in the house of God, your 9th house, this transit can feel somber. It can feel like you're going through some sort of spiritual racking. Now, that sounds very dramatic, but that's astrologically with the planet in transit in the sign of Aries, in the house of God, and it's Venus. That's how it feels, because Aries is ruled by the planet Mars, and Mars, for this transit of Venus in Aries, Mars' zodiac sign, Mars is in Cancer in your 12th house. And that is the house of the unconscious. It's the house of the void. It's the house where we retreat to recalibrate, reconnect, whether that's through spiritual practices, retreats, having a medical procedure, going into therapy, identifying the ghost in the room. That's the 12th house, and that's where Mars is, and Mars rules Aries, where Venus is transiting in the 9th house for you, the house of God. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of astrological babble, but this is important, and this is why I've struggled with trying to interpret how I think this transit's going to be going for you. The only thing I can come up with in a practical way is that you will be really going through a deep, cathartic, cleansing, purifying process of understanding the unconscious and trying to philosophize it all. And that could have you wanting to engage with spiritual practices, therapy, educating yourself, dealing with foreigners like herbal practitioners, astrologers, tarot readers, monks, priests, and maybe with Venus in the 9th house wanting to travel to foreign places or lands to take you out of your familiar environment, to reconnect with mind, body, spirit, and soul. And this transit, I think, will be tough going on the soul. I feel it's that profound. Now that's like, whoa, this is freaking heavy. Come on, Cosmic Girl. But that's how I feel it, like it is. And sometimes we need to retract from the world to recenter our chakra system, realign and connect with something bigger than ourselves, and understand it and process it and identify with things like invisible shackles that need to leave us, be removed from us. So our experiences are lighter, more in line with our moral and ethical compass and our own beliefs. So this transit for Venus in Aries will have you being more of a student and researcher of the world, the larger picture of life, and how you are integrally connected to it. So that's how I see this transit. And that has a lot to do because of Mars being in your 12th house of Cancer, in that really emotionally penetrating zodiac sign that's hard to translate and understand and ruffle up the waters of memory and emotion and psychic feelings and intuition. That's why I think it's difficult, because Mars is in fall in your 12th house, opening up the month. It's retrograde. It will go direct this month, actually. But nevertheless, Mars is still putting you through, if you will, a process of elimination. And that has to do with all of the invisible, intangible parts of ourselves. And Mars will really be putting you through quite an emotional storm with this transit, because Venus in Mars' sign of Aries, the house of God, it's like a coming to Jesus transit, and that's dramatic. I know it's dramatic, but that's how I see this transit playing out for you. Trying to harmonize Venus, unite Venus, develop a relationship, Venus, with the house of God, the things that are bigger than us, how we can learn through different spiritual paths, experiences that are foreign to us. How can we embody that? Yet the planet Mars that rules that temple of Aries, that ninth house, is in a very psychological, emotional part of your chart in the 12th house of the unseen. So it's a big transit for you, with Venus transiting in Aries in your ninth house. And I did find it difficult to talk about it in a real life practical way. The ninth house, long distance travel, foreign connections, higher education, uh, bureaucracy, law. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But I don't think that's what you're concentrating on. I think you're going through a process of elimination. And it's quite deep and spiritual and psychological. So, like the big purge and cleanse is what I'm getting. And you might be, with Venus in Aries and in ninth house, more attracted to that. Like, how do I finally, get this dead weight off me that stops me from being my best self? What's the emotions? What's the psychological block? What's the spiritual block? What's the emotional block? That's how I feel this transit is playing out for the Leo risings. Feel free to leave any comments in the comment section below. It's just my interpretation of this transit for you. So yes, Venus will be in your ninth house for the whole month of February. Good luck with that. And the same day, Jupiter goes direct in Gemini in your 11th house. So your 11th house is your friends, your social connections, your professional alliances. It's also the house of dreams and goals. Like, what do you dream of? Well, with Jupiter direct in Gemini now for the rest of the month, you can start to bounce ideas off your friends and your social connections. You may start to want to create more diversity and variety amongst your social circles. So trying to be more engaged with your friends moving forward with Jupiter now going direct in Gemini. You may have had some time away from friends or not been so engaged. Maybe there was a bit of a lull with friends or your social connections. It's the same old, same old. But now Jupiter going direct, maybe there's something that you guys can do differently that brings in more variety and fun when you do socialize together. So Jupiter going direct in Gemini is a positive transit for you. Moving on from the 6th to the 12th, we have Saturn in Pisces, trining Mars retrograde. We've just been talking about Mars. So these 6 days of the month are great for reducing and eliminating confusion when it comes to resources, shared finances, debt, tax, and inheritance. It's good to reduce your bills, cut out subscriptions, maybe let go of those emotional draining monetary connections. Maybe you need to, as a Leo rising, step up to the plate and go, I don't really want to go into a monetary contract with you. I want to actually get rid of it and have more independence when it comes to my money, more freedom with my monetary decisions. So you might be wanting to separate yourself from partnerships and debt with this transit from the 6th to the 12th, with Saturn trining Mars retrograde in your 12th house. Great days of the month to do the hard things, like talk about things that are difficult, talk about how you can detach yourself from those 8th house topics of emotional draining financial connections, or maybe it's something to do with inheritance. The topics of inheritance are easier to talk about from the 6th to the 12th of the month as well. Whilst Mars and Saturn are trining one another from the 6th to the 12th, from the 10th to the 12th, we have Mercury conjunct the Sun, your ruling planet. Mercury is conjuncting your ruling planet in Aquarius in your 7th house of relationships and contracts. Whilst that conjunction is happening, it's squaring Uranus in your 10th house being Taurus. So this is an interesting planetary alignment to talk about. Mercury is conjuncting your sun. So Mercury is moving towards you, your sun, you in the 7th house. So this is hearing information, getting communication, getting a letter or an email, getting a phone call, talking out a situation with a relationship or an agreement between the 10th and the 12th. And whilst that happens, whilst you're hearing this information, it's going to have a knock-on effect with Taurus, the 10th house, which is your career, your achievements, your public ambitions regarding your career. It's to do with your public name. It's to do with superiors. So this can be information, communication, or a conversation that disrupts your public life on your workspace. And so look out for a Mercury disruption. Mercury is sneaking up on your planet, the sun, and it's going to go boom. This is the information you need. And it's going to be affecting your 10th house, squaring Uranus. And Uranus has been in your 10th house since 2018, Leo rising. And when it squares Uranus, the planet of unpredictability, this could be an unpredictable document, communication, or conversation from a superior in your workplace, or to do with your career or your public life. So interesting days from the 6th to the 12th of February. Moving on to the 13th, the next day, we have a full moon in Leo. So that's your first house. So if you can connect the astrological alignments and dots, you've got this communication coming towards you. You're trying to process your subconscious, your sense of self, trying to harmonize with the bigger spiritual parts of life and how you're connected to it in the world. And then 13th, we have a full moon in Leo lighting up your first house. So the moon shining, lighting it up on you, your first house, your identity, your body, your sense of self, who you are and how people see you. Well, the moon is only bright because it reflects the sunshine, and the sun, your ruling planet, is transiting in Aquarius where Mercury and the sun are having that conjunction. So this information or communication or document is certainly going to be indicating how you're feeling on this day with the moon in your first house of Leo as Leo rising. And because the sun is informing that moon, you're having a full-on emotional expression of this communication document or conversation about relationships, agreements, your workplace, superiors, all to do with communication. So it might be a mentally exciting day, an emotionally exciting day, but it's in your first house of you. So you might be more engaged with expressing yourself from the heart about this Mercury Sun conjunction, whatever this conversation is about that's impacting your public life, superiors, your work. Very interestingly, nationally arising. Then on the 14th, Mercury leaves Aquarius, where it's conjunct your ruling planet, the Sun, and moves into the zodiac sign of Pisces. And this is your 8th house of shared resources, other people's finances, debt, tax, inheritance. And that's where Mars and Saturn were trining from the 6th to the 12th. So you have a Pisces stellium going on. You've got Neptune in Pisces, your 8th house, Saturn in Pisces in your 8th house, North Node in Pisces in your 8th house. And now Mercury steps into your 8th house of Pisces. So when you have a stellium, the subjects and topics of the 8th house become louder. That's 3 or more planets. So things are getting louder in the 8th house. So when Mercury steps into the zodiac sign of Pisces, Mercury is in fall and in detriment. In short, Mercury is trying to be as creative as Mercury can be about communication, conversations, mercurial topics like finance. And in Pisces, Mercury struggles to understand the bigger picture. It wants smaller details to process and dilute what it's experienced. It doesn't like to be overwhelmed. And in Pisces, emotionally overwhelmed may be what you can experience with this transit. Emotionally overwhelmed with other people's resources and finance, debt, tax, and inheritance. So heads up there with Mercury transiting in fall in Pisces and in detriment, your 8th house for the rest of February. So I can feel instinctively when I'm talking about the archetypal explanations of the planets in transits and what the planets have been doing to date for you, especially Mercury, which we discussed, that Mercury will be the key protagonist in the month of February for all of us, that there's a knock-on effect from the conjunction, the full moon, and then Mercury going into your 8th house. This is where you'll be really trying to unravel emotional mysteries, where you can get creative when it comes to those 8th house topics, Leo rising. Everyone is going through a Mercury in Pisces transit in fall in detriment. It'll just be in different parts of everyone's natal chart in different houses. But for you, it's in that 8th house. So easy does it with this transit with Mercury in Pisces. Then, just for fun, your ruling planet, the Sun, steps into Pisces as well for 4 weeks. Oh, who doesn't like excitement? So you can liken this to as for 4 weeks, you show up in the 8th house and you hang out with Mercury, you hang out with Saturn, Neptune, the North Node, and you're like, what's going on here in this house? How am I entangled and intertwined in all of this? You had a conversation, a sobering conversation earlier in the month with Saturn trine Mars retrograde from the 6th to the 12th. So now you're stepping in and going, okay, that was the conversations. We've maybe made some adjustments, but now I'm really keen. Leo Rising's really keen to identify where you can get creative in regards to those 8th house topics. Then be more optimistic about the transit instead of overwhelmed by it. So that means, what can you talk about? Can you talk about investment options? Can you have conversations with people that you share your resources with and say, hey, let's make some adjustments. Let's talk about where we can come together in more harmony instead of separation. Where can we get creative? And if you feel emotionally drained when you're talking about financial matters with other people, then that's your red flag, Leo rising. Don't push things under the rug. Your sun stepping into Pisces for 8 weeks is helpful for looking at the deeper parts of your financial entanglements and things like inheritance, tax, and debt. So don't shy away from the tough stuff, is advised. Interestingly, arisings. Moving on to the 20th, now we have Mercury squaring Jupiter. We've got what's called mutual reception here. Mercury is in Jupiter's sign, which is Pisces, and Jupiter's in Mercury's sign, which is Gemini. So mutual reception is, look, I understand that you're in my sign not coping well. Mercury's in fallen in detriment in Pisces. That's Jupiter's sign. And Mercury looks at Jupiter and goes, I know you don't function very well in my temple of Gemini. There's a lot going on there. I understand that. So both planets are like, we understand and we can see the tension and the conflict, but we can work it out. We can work it out. But there's nothing we can't handle. So this is on the 20th, a typical conversation with a friend or a social group, and it's of a financial aspect or something monetary that you guys are entwined with. So this could be the day where it's a sobering conversation, or you may struggle with finding the words to speak authentically, or you may struggle with believing what you're hearing about friends or a social connection. Is it true? Are they for real? You get the picture. But because both planets are in mutual reception, whatever the conflict or problem is, it can be sorted out. This is like, look, we're both not getting what we really want, but we can work within these parameters. So that's a tricky day coming up on the 20th. Moving on to the 23rd, we now have Mercury trining Mars retrograde. So it's now Mercury's turn to trine at Mars retrograde as Saturn trined Mars retrograde earlier in the month. When Mercury trines Mars, this day is good for having some really optimistic conversations about things from the past or that have been swept under the rug, to do with finances, debt, tax, and inheritance. You might be more willing to look at the realities of a situation that has been glossed over on the 23rd of February. The next day, on the 24th, Mars goes direct. Good news for all of us with Mars going direct. So Mars going direct now in your 12th house of the unconscious. You've had enough emotional experience and the journey to date to identify what emotionally is safe, what feels good for you, and what doesn't moving forward. And that's to do with isolation, solitude, all the 12th house topics we've been talking about. You've experienced enough to know that enough is enough and what makes you feel secure. The work isn't complete, but at the very least, with Mars going direct, you have an idea of a new strategy to build strength within yourself. So you're digging really deep into the reserves of your psyche to have more discipline and strength when it comes to your emotional landscapes and the unconscious parts of the 12th house. So that's quite positive with Mars going direct from the 24th. Moving on to the 25th, Mercury conjuncts Saturn and Venus sextiles Jupiter. This is a really good day, Leo rising, to feel really certain and clear about your financial path forward, connected with the 8th house topics of financial entanglements, debt, tax, and inheritance. Really good. With shared resources, you could take on a loan, or you could pay down a loan or settle a financial dispute that's been going on for some time in your life on the 25th. Awesome. And with Venus sextiling Jupiter on the same day, and this decision with the benefics agreeing is going to improve your dreams and goals for your future. So you're making a pretty mature decision here about your financial future. And it could be because of what you actually want to do in your future projection. What do you want to do when it comes to your dreams and your goals? Well, it comes down to making a pretty solid decision with Mercury conjuncting Saturn that finances or entanglements need to be severed, or you need to take on a loan to actually accomplish a goal. So interesting day on the 25th. On the 28th, there's a new moon in Pisces in your 8th house, and this stellium of Pisces really kicking up now. Saturn, Neptune, Moon, Sun, your ruling planet, Mercury, and the North Node, all in Pisces, your 8th house. So when you have a new moon on the 28th, this is a really good time to start a new financial plan. So you may be planning to invest in your body. You may be wanting to invest in your home. You may want to have some big conversations with parents about finances and how they help you. Inheritance, 8th house, or getting financial assistance from parents is a possibility from the 28th of February moving forward. But a new moon in Pisces always heralds something that can emotionally be quite cathartic. So you're emotionally releasing something and bringing something into your reality that's more settled on your nervous system, your emotional landscapes. So you're intuitively drawn to improving the body, mind, and spirit, your financial standing, and it could have to do with your home or parents as well. So interesting. And yeah, investing in the body is a potential with this new moon on the 28th of February. So that's your astrology for the month. A lot, huh, Leo rising? Well, it is an active month, and that's all thanks to Mercury. So I understand that this content was quite dense and quite a lot, but the astrology is speaking loudly, and we don't want to bypass the significance of what the planets are actually trying to talk about to you. So I know that Mars retrograde in Cancer is difficult, but it does go direct this month. And I know that the Venus transit in your 9th house, because it's Mars's zodiac sign of Aries, the house of God, can be somewhat difficult. But we're all having a spiritual journey, and we try to understand that with the planets in transits and the cycles of the planets. So I've done my very best to at least give you a path forward into the month and try to slowly process and work with the planets in transits and maybe respect what the gods are trying to deliver to us instead of fighting against it, so we can have an easier time instead of being so disrupted and blown around by the cycles of the planets. All right, Leo rising, leave any comments in the comments section below. I respond to all comments and I appreciate any feedback. So till next time, stay cosmic.